Morning, all, and welcome back to the show. I guess you can call it. So I'm trying to black jersey because even though it sometimes breaks the camera, for some reason it's just midday where that seems to be a problem. So we'll see if it's okay right now. Because I need to wear Hawks again because Kris Versteeg announced his retirement. Now, technically, he played his last game in the NHL March 18th of 2018. So there will be those who don't remember that he was still playing or that he was with Rockford to start the season before going over to Europe, where he finishes things out. Versteeg, 358 points in his career, 643 games played, not too shabby, and a 2010 Cup ring, added to a 2015 Cup ring. He has two more Cup rings than a lot of legends have in NHL history. So for Kris Versteeg, happy retirement. It's got to be weird retiring in this environment, though, doesn't it? You're kind of like, well, so I'm at home, and I guess I retire. Yeah, there's no pomp and circumstance for any of this. It's like I've been saying, if you have a birthday during all of this, it doesn't count. You get two of them next year. Easter, that didn't count. You get two of them next year. St. Patrick's Day, you get two of those next year, too. So the longer this goes, the more we have two of everything. So, yeah, Versteeg retires, and I would expect there to be, he's not going to have his number retired by Chicago, but I would be very surprised if they don't have some kind of a ceremony at some point for him, where they sort of say thanks, have him out there to drop a puck, that kind of thing. As kind of a thanks for your contributions to two Stanley Cup winners. Dale Hawerchuk, here's some good news. He has finished his chemo. His chemo wraps up for his stomach cancer. I wanted to make sure I remember which one it was because there's various forms that all suck equally bad. But of course, in this environment again, Dale, be careful. You're a treasure for NHL fans as old as myself and anybody who can remember watching you play. So we want you to stay home and stay safe too. We can all agree that that's the best hope. Now you get your chemo done. Now sit down, maybe have a beer, and just wait it out. Dale Hawerchuk, that's good news. He's finished that, and here's to hoping everything goes fine for him from here. Now, the NHL, in what is the least surprising move in history, has extended the self-quarantine, self-isolation period for NHL players until April 30th. They're going to extend it again from there. What they're doing is they're just going basically 15 days at a time and waiting it out, and they can do this. And I realize how impatient it makes players and how much it frustrates fans and stuff, but they can do this. Now, the Tour de France announced today there won't be a Tour de France this year. That makes a lot of sense. France has gone through a lot and still seems to be going through a lot. The key thing here is we've seen all of the models changing, the charts changing over the last few weeks. So some of the horrible, scary numbers that we were seeing a few weeks ago have changed. So they're still horrible. I'm not pretending they're not, but they've improved. And as long as we do our part and stay home and obey everything, there's no reason to think that by the summer we won't see quite a different situation. Now, over in Taiwan, they've started playing baseball without fans in attendance. Taiwan had everything pretty well under control, of course. I thought it was interesting too that they have they've created fans in the stands. They've got look like mannequins and stuff like that, where holding up signs and all that. Yeah, interesting stuff. So there is a sport being played somewhere, and when I heard that, I thought, hey, I need to go watch some Taiwanese baseball. Yeah, that's where we're at. That's where we're at. Where I'm like, hey, there's a sport happening. I've got to watch that. So. That's where I'm at as a fan of sports that wants something to watch. That's not a rerun of old games. The old NHL games that they've been playing, and I'm going through Twitter this morning, and almost every team is advertising these games that they're broadcasting, old games, old playoff games, all these. Hey, look back at this. It's not drawing enough eyeballs. It's And just for me too, as a fan, it's hard to watch because I'm like, well, I know who wins this. So watching 2.5 hours of hockey when I know how it's going to end up, So it doesn't surprise me that people aren't watching it a whole lot. I can say that with my live streams, the viewing numbers on my live streams have dropped like crazy when I'm doing the NHL 20 because people don't want to see the simulation now. They're kind of distracted by everything else going on, understandably so. And the fun of it kind of isn't there because it's like, yeah, so this is how that flawed hockey game sees things turning out. But if you simulate 10 seasons, you'll get 10 completely different results. So that's a problem. And that's been my problem with EA the whole time. I used to do the be a GM mode on NHL. I want to say it was 12 that I played the most. NHL 12. And every time I simulated a season with the exact same rosters, completely different results. And that was where I went, oh, this doesn't really mean anything then, does it? Why is Columbus always really good? So, yeah. How is Eric Daze still leading the team? He hasn't been in the league for a while. I'm just kidding. Daze, though, in NHL 2004 was just a super god of goal scoring. I know he was a good goal scorer for Chicago back in the day, but it was ridiculous how good he was in the EA games. I'm not saying he gave them money to be that way, but I don't know how to finish that. All right, now something that people have glommed onto pretty quick is Drew Doughty going, I don't know how they're going to play hockey. And right away everybody's like, Drew Doughty doesn't think it's coming back. Well, Drew Doughty doesn't think it's coming back, so for all those people who are saying it's not going to come back, they're all like, listen to Drew Doughty. Right. So I want to remind people with Drew Doughty that on October 9th of 2019, he said, after the Canucks beat the Kings 8-2 in their home opener, a team like that should not be beating a team like ours 8-2. There's actually no way, as part of his spiel about how, that shouldn't happen. And it did. And then the Kings had a miserable run of it for quite a while after. And team like that is now a t-shirt you can get through the Vancouver Canucks store because Canuck fans rightfully took that and went, wait, what? Because the Kings weren't a great team last year either. I could understand if the Kings were coming off of one of their Stanley Cups and he said that, but I didn't understand that. That was something that I'm like, is he delusional? And yes would seem to be the answer to that. And yeah, so that's why when he says, oh, that's it, and people are like, oh, it was clearly. And when I hear a Canuck fan say it, I'm thinking, really? You're taking Doughty's word for it? Well, where did you take his word for it then? Because I didn't. So I just thought that was worthy of throwing up on the board right now because, again, players don't know. The league doesn't know. Gary Bettman himself has said, we haven't ruled anything out. We haven't ruled anything in. I don't know. And there's some debate about whether or not Saskatoon has made a play to get games for the NHL. And whether or not other remote locations are like, hey, we can do this. We've got hotels that are completely empty because nobody's traveling right now. We've got room. We can do this. We've got rinks. Let's figure something out. So there is a possibility we'll see something at some point during the summer. But again, we just don't know right now, and I think it's strange that as soon as somebody goes, I don't think it's going to happen, everybody's, see, there you go. All right, and I wanted to talk about this because this is a feel-good story too. Now, Kiana Scott, you have no idea who she is, unless you might be Kiana Scott, or you might know her. 20-year-old from Ontario. And she has been hired as the first OHL female scout by the Erie Otters. So, at least she's from Barrie. So what's interesting about this is that Erie Otters general manager Dave Brown went to 3 games on a Sunday. And every single game he went to, she was there. So at the end of that 3rd game, he's like, I got to find out why this girl's at all these games. And he finds out she was scouting for the International Scouting Services. So she had been hired by them to view some games. So he sits her down and, all right, figures out she's got a really good work ethic. And she talked about what she looks for in hockey players when she's scouting. And it sounds good. She's looking for guys who play a 200-foot game. She's looking at scouting at skating mechanics and all of this as well. And she's played hockey herself. And yeah, she is on every level capable of being a scout. Now, what's interesting with scouting is that, NHL scouts make a good living. You don't when you're at that level. So what she's done is she's basically made it so that she's taking a job that won't pay all the bills. She's still living at home with her parents. And they're supportive of this in her dream that this will lead to something else in the hockey world. So she's been hired by the Erie Otters, and I think that's great. And they said it had nothing to do with whether this was a girl or a guy. They needed another scout. So they needed somebody to work this job that will not pay all of your bills, that will not make you financially independent, that is kind of pretty thankless when you look at scouts. We can name off some NHL scouts, usually when we don't like who they pick, but scouts can be a pretty nameless group, and yet they play such an important role in the future of hockey. So congratulations to her. I think that's great. It was also International Goalkeeper Day apparently today, so I saw Hope Solo a lot because if it's women's soccer, it's all Hope Solo. But on International Goalkeepers Day, I don't think goalkeepers involves hockey as well because they're goaltenders. Goalkeepers is soccer/football, so I don't think goalkeepers involves hockey as well. We'll see. We'll see whether or not my Twitter feed fills up with goaltenders as well. Now, something else that I talked about yesterday. Jim Benning was interviewed regarding Nikolai Goldobin, and basically said, yeah, other guys on our team passed him on the depth chart. We were going in another direction. He only played the one game for the team this year. That was it. And they had decided to move on. He says they tried trading him at the deadline to no avail. And he wasn't really surprised when Goldobin decided to go back to Russia for a couple of years in a contract he signed last week. So, the Canucks are being transparent about this. That, yeah, no, Goldobin, we felt he'd been passed by other players. I actually think that's a good thing. I think it's a good thing when you can't just walk onto a roster. I think you figure out when a team's out of a rebuild when there aren't just guys who get a roster spot by default. Where it's, well, he's on our fourth line, but we don't really have a better option. That's not a good thing. When you're saying that because the guy's not very good, but what can we do? And the Canucks don't feel like they're that team anymore. They were able to get rid of Schaller at the deadline. Goldobin's down in the minors. Reed Boucher didn't, come up this year and play very much. And I think that's a good thing. That guys that fans get mad about being in the minors are in that position. Rather than previous seasons where we'd see guys on the team that we said, why? Now, I know Louis Eriksson is one that's been a very, very divisive name with Canuck fans. But I think the team's got a lot better. I do. And I think that's a good sign. I think that's a good thing. Zdeno Chara, word has it he wants to return next season, and why not? He looked good this year. I figured he was going to come back next year. Apparently, even before the pause, he was saying, yeah, no, I'm going to come back next year. He will get within shouting distance of that Gordie Howe games played record. It's only a matter of time until somebody passes that games played record of Gordie Howe's. And it's very well possible it could be Zdeno Chara. It could, of course, be Patrick Marleau as well, if he finds himself another suitor in the offseason this year. But Chara may very well end up taking a run at it. You have to think if he plays one more year, if they get, depending on how much of a schedule they get in next season, we'll see. And for people who might be kind of tired of them kicking the can down the road, now they're up to April 30th on the self-isolation. This is a league that's supposed to start in October that I have watched them wait all the way until February before making a decision on whether or not to cancel a season. So for you kids, you're not even in it yet. We're not even close to where the NHL can go with this. So there you go. News of the day. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And hey, thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. It means a ton. Remember, stay home, stay safe, keep your hands nice and clean, and we'll see you again soon.